Hey, everybody, welcome in. It is a Monday edition of the Utopia Football Podcast. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you had a nice Sunday, an off day for everybody involved with Texans football, maybe including you, the fans. Appreciate you tuning in. I am Sean Pendergast, one half of Payne and Pendergast on Sports Radio 610, and it's great to be with you just minutes removed from Texans practice on a Monday. The sun was back out again today. No rain, no cool temperatures. This felt a whole lot more like a Houston Texans training camp. Weather-wise out there today. And you could see it a little bit with some of the guys. Maybe some of them had adjusted a little too much to the low 80s temperatures that we've been getting. Certainly the rookie class has not really experienced anything like this yet. Practice in pads in Houston heat. So it was today's practice was, I would say, once again, a practice that was won by the defense. So we'll get into all that. We'll get into some of the updates on guys who were and were not practicing, injury updates, as well as some of the good plays that happened out there. But this is technically a game week for the Texans. Feels weird to type that or say that on July 29th, but the Houston Texans started up a game week today. It's a preseason game, so it's about and it's a preseason game that is about as exhibition gets. The Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio. I would be surprised at this point. I don't know. D'Amico was heading to the podium when I was leaving to come back home to record this, so I don't know if he's yet addressed how they're going to handle the Hall of Fame game. I would suspect that we won't see any of the star players, the prominent star players, play a snap in this game. But still, we got a game coming up this week, and that's cool, and it's coming up on Thursday. So we'll have you covered on the podcast all week. There's another practice tomorrow. I'll have a practice report there. We have a mailbag tomorrow as well, houmailbag@gmail.com if you want to send in questions for tomorrow's mailbag. And then we'll do a Thursday episode where we, quasi preview the Hall of Fame game as best we can. Just things to watch for. I don't know that anybody's looking for a preview where I predict who wins this game, but probably different position groups and guys that you've probably been able to pick up from both my reports and reports from some other capable folks out there at the practices as to who some of the guys are that are fighting for their jobs or making a big impression. Those will be the guys to watch. So we'll give you that list on Thursday when the game is actually here. We've still got today's practice and tomorrow's practice to get you up to speed on those. So I would say the defense won again today. For the third straight practice, the Texans defense got the better of the Texans offense. And I would say that was across the board. That was first string, second string, string. There wasn't any level of offense that got the better of the defensive units. And right now, the biggest disparity is between the offensive line and the defensive lines. The defensive front has had their way in practice and probably highlighted most of all probably by Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, which is to be expected, especially when either of them are lined up over Blake Fisher. That's not an indictment of Blake Fisher. That's just the fact of the matter with Fisher being a rookie. But that's the biggest disparity right now is the defensive front, which may mean great things for the Texans this coming season. I'd rather see the Texans defensive front getting some good plays in than see them getting stonewalled because I think there's still some reasons why the offensive line, particularly the starting offensive line for the Texans, might be struggling against a defensive front that's both very talented and very experienced, especially on the interior. It's not just Danielle Hunter, who's 30 years old. Mario Edwards Jr., Tim Settle, Foley Fatukasi isn't 30 yet, but he's an experienced player. Danico Autry is 34 now. So you would expect that because Juice Scruggs is playing full-time center for the first time. Kenyon Green hasn't played football in a year. Blake Fisher's a rookie. That's your whole left side plus your center. And then on the right side, they're not playing Shaq Mason and Titus Howard every single snap out there with the ones. They're rotating some other guys in. So if I knew all that going in and you asked me which unit do you think is going to be the more dominant one, especially early on in practice, I would have said the defense. So this isn't a great shock or anything like that. I'm very anxious to see what it looks like once Laramie Tunsil is back out there. He's still on the sideline working out, nursing his surgically repaired knee. But that's probably the most concerning thing would be that the interior of the offensive line, it's not just Blake Fisher struggling on the outside. The interior has had its struggles over the past few practices as well. So if you're looking at it glass half full, the Texans are going to have some tough decisions probably along the defensive line. They usually keep, I want to say, 4 defensive tackles There's going to be I won't say a good like capital GOOD, but there's going to be a capable NFL defensive interior player, at least one, maybe two, that get let go by the Texans, who I think are going to be immediately picked up by another team. But defense wins again today, and that's the third straight practice. So we'll see if they bounce back. It got to a point in the practice during the 2-minute drill. No, not during the 2-minute drill. During the 2-minute drill, CJ Stroud actually made a few plays. But during one of the team sessions, after which there was a water break or they broke to go do special teams or something, CJ, and I don't know if this is normal, but I knew he was frustrated from how the team drill had just gone, the 11-on-11, and he literally brought an iPad with him to the next round of drills, to whatever the drill station was for quarterbacks, so he could look at that while they were getting ready to do drills. So CJ's dialed in, but the offense has not looked great the last few practices. Speaking of CJ, update on his foot, which was stepped on by Foley Fatukasi on Saturday, and it appeared to at least irritate CJ for the remainder of that practice to some degree. He was moving around, I thought, a little bit gingerly, not horribly. He was healthy enough to finish practice. Doesn't look like there's any lingering effect from that. He ran out full bore from inside the practice bubble this morning. They do all their stretching exercises inside the practice bubble, and then they come out to all the entrance music and all the loud noise and the fans and everything else. CJ was running out there. He looked fine physically at practice today. But if you follow practice on a daily basis, you know that he did get dinged on Saturday. So his foot might still be in some pain. He wasn't showing it in how he moved. He was moving fine. Where the struggles were offensively was just getting things in sync and then the pressure coming from up front. As far as other injury updates go for practice today, Joe Mixon, Laramie Tunsil, Christian Harris, CJ Henderson, and Case Keenum all out with injuries, either known injuries or in the case of Keenum, this is 2 straight practices. He hasn't worked out. So I'm assuming there's something going on physically with Case. But all the quarterback reps went to Stroud, Davis Mills, and Tim Boyle today. And I don't know what they're going to do at the quarterback position behind CJ. If they're looking to move any of them, or if Tim Boyle winds up making the team, or if Case Keenum, what the deal is with Case. But that's where we are injury-wise. Andrew Beck, fullback, suited up for warm-ups, like literally was in his pads and his uniform, but took the pads off shortly after warm-ups, and then he worked out on a side field. I've not seen anything from the Texans that indicates Andrew Beck is off of the PUP list. Maybe I should check and see if that's the case. Nope. Texans announced a partnership with McDonald's. I got that announcement just now. They announced a partnership with McDonald's Houston. But nothing in here about Andrew Beck. I guess I'll mention this here. During the 2024 season, fans can expect to score off the field when the Texans score on the field in a promotion called Pass the McNuggets. The first passing touchdown of each Texans game, fans can score a free 6-piece McNugget in the app with the purchase of $1 or more. It's a year-round promotion, including the preseason, all home and away games. Fans can redeem this offer an entire day following the game during business hours at participating McDonald's Houston locations. How about that? So if the Texans score a passing touchdown, which this Stroud kid seems to throw quite a few of, they can get a 6-piece McNugget with the purchase of $1 or more. So you just got to buy something else, and you get a 6-piecer to go with it. That's pretty sweet, man. This is when it's good to have CJ Stroud as your quarterback, when they're giving away free food for passing touchdowns. I lived through the days of Tyrod Taylor and a rookie Davis Mills. There were not a lot of touchdowns thrown in those days. So good, man. Houston is about to get a whole lot chunkier with free 6-piece McNuggets flying off the shelf. All right. So where was I here? Oh yeah. Injuries. Yeah. Andrew Beck suited up, and he's apparently still on the PUP list, but he too, I would think, is eligible for 6 free McNuggets when CJ Stroud throws a touchdown pass, maybe even to Andrew Beck. Andrew Beck caught a couple touchdown passes last year. Can you imagine winning yourself 6 free McNuggets? How sweet is that? As far as other injury stuff, Titus Howard, right tackle, appeared to tweak something during the first set of 11-on-11 drills and was talking to a trainer on the side field for several minutes. He eventually worked again with the first team in the last set of team drills, but he was off to the side he was in the tent for a little bit and then off to the side for a good while talking to a trainer. So that he was back out there was good, but just, I guess, something to keep an eye on, particularly if you're at practice tomorrow, Tuesday, to see if Titus Howard suits up. So we'll keep an eye on that. Not a ton of highlights for the offense on the day. One of the few offensive highlights was Davis Mills hitting Xavier Hutchinson with a touchdown pass in team drills. Hutchinson is in the mix, as I talked about in a previous episode last week. He's in the mix for one of the final receiver slots. It's going to make for some really interesting decisions for Nick Caserio. That's the one position group where Nick has made no secret about the fact that there's going to be at least one or two good players who get let go by the Texans. And Hutchinson, as of right now, if you listen to my podcast last week where I was talking about kind of overloaded positions with guys, I think there's 4 guys who for sure in my mind are going to make the team at receiver. Diggs, Dell, Nico, and John Mechie, I think, is going to make it. And then, 6 is usually the max that a team keeps. So Xavier Hutchinson's done some good things in camp. Ben Skoronek's done some good things in camp. I think Noah Brown's about as close to a lock making the team. They put him out at the podium today. They don't usually put guys who are on the fringe bubble out at the podium. So let's go ahead and throw Noah Brown in there as the 5th one. So unless you're going to keep 7 or 8 receivers, which they won't, and then Steven Sims is your return guy, which he's technically listed as a receiver. So, and if in a pinch, that's what position he would play if he had to do something other than return kicks. So he's a receiver. So there's absolutely going to be some players who I think can make another roster, getting cut from a few positions, including wide receiver. But Xavier Hutchinson, super productive in college and had a few moments last year as a rookie, making a play again today. As far as rookies go, Jawar Jordan, I think, continues to show a ton of juice at the running back position, both running the football and catching the football. My hope with some of these running backs is that they get bumped up in the rotation and that they get some reps with the ones. Dario Gumbawale was with the ones today, and I think he scored a touchdown during team drills, caught a couple passes. I don't need to see Dario Gumbawale. I want to see some of these younger guys, what that looks like running against and running with first stringers. And Jawar Jordan would be at or near the top of that list for me. So I guess, the other thing concerning maybe right now with the Texans, Tank Dell has yet to have a real good practice. Like, he hasn't had any bad practices. He's dropped a couple balls, but so has everybody. But he hasn't had that practice yet where he's really done some wow things. And I bring that up because he was doing that regularly last year. I remember the practice against the Dolphins when the Dolphins were in town. I remember Seth and I showed up late to that because we had our full show at that point in training camp. We were on 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. or I'm sorry, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. at that point up in the studio. So we had to drive out to practice. We got out there a little bit late. We got there in time for the first set of team drills. It was 15 plays and Tank Dell scored 3 touchdowns. And that was, 3 touchdowns in 15 plays wasn't normal, but Tank flashing and showing out was very normal. And it's just been there's been very few times this camp so far where you've seen Tank and he just stands out from the other receivers in drills and whatnot. So I guess just something to keep an eye on. I don't think he's moving any differently. In the one-on-one drills, you guys have seen enough of the footage that's probably popped up on Twitter. He blew by Jalen Petrie in a one-on-one drill. He's broken ankles on some one-on-one drills, figuratively speaking. But no big showing out from Tank yet. So something to keep an eye on. So we've got one more practice tomorrow before the Hall of Fame game. The team travels on Wednesday, game on Thursday. So I've got you covered here on the podcast with a practice report tomorrow, a mailbag Thursday, and then a preview for the Hall of Fame game at some point Wednesday or Thursday. The easiest thing to do is hit the subscribe button so you make sure you get all these podcasts automatically wherever it is you listen to your podcasts. Again, the mailbag is I'm still taking questions in there. Got a lot of them in there, but if you send in a good one, houmailbag@gmail.com, houmailbag@gmail.com. Programming wise, Seth Payne and I are still on 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. tomorrow and Wednesday. And then we're back to our normal 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. schedule moving forward. So training camp from a short show standpoint for Payne and Pendergast ends on Wednesday this week, back to the full show on Thursday this week. And then the game itself, the Hall of Fame game, you can hear on Sports Radio 610 and 100.3 The Bull. You can hear pregame and postgame Pre-game with me and Seth, post-game with me and Clint Stoerner. You can hear on Sports Radio 610 as well. And I believe we stream that on the Odyssey app too, up until that window that the NFL, right before the game and shortly after the game, where they've got exclusivity on that. So, but you can always get it on Sports Radio 610. All right, so there you go. For Anthony Irwin, my producer, I'm Sean Pendergast. We are out of time. We will see you tomorrow. 2 episodes tomorrow. Practice report and the mailbag. Got you covered for that tomorrow. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Utopia Football Podcast.